Hey there, everyone. Hope this finds you well. My latest sort of stream of consciousness. Oh, I really should show you this kind of presentation about my methods. And once again, a little bit more information about my method of sewing up box pleat kilts, particularly the military box pleat kilt. This is McNeil of Colonsay, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I only read these words. I never ever hear them here in Vancouver. Um, 29 pleats, very narrow pleats, as you can see. And as I believe I've said elsewhere, um, because I'm a left-hander and in my apprenticeship, I never learned box pleat kilts because reasons. I've had to come up with my own methods. And again, as I've shown earlier, my method is to calculate the pleat, the number of pleats, the width and weight at hip and waist, and then fold these things over into an S shape and then base them to achieve the right hand edge, as we see here, looking from the top to the bottom of the kilt. Because to do it otherwise, I know there are other methods. I know, I'm convinced at least, that nobody else, the right-handed kilt makers of the past, didn't have to do this. I don't know what their methods were. If you can find out, if you can share it with us, we'll all be for the head for it. But again, the process that I invented for myself is folding each pleat so that it's half of the width at waist and hip, basting in place, pressing it, letting it dry, of course, and then sewing it up. And I'm coming to the very last pleat here, pleat number 29, and I seem to have hit right on the mark for my waist measurement. I'm a little bit over in the hip measurement, but generally that's okay, because remember, we need some ease there. And also, our outside pleat, our last pleat on either side, is a knife pleat, not a box pleat. So this is a knife pleat pointing to this. Well, they're both knife pleats pointing to the center back of the kilt. So the left hip, it's well, let's call it a left knife pleat, and here's the right knife pleat here. So my process has been, you start off in the first pleat. I do the buttonhole as always, and then when I finish sewing a pleat, I unpick the basting. I unpick the basting down to and I'm using the blunt end, the reverse end of the needle here. I undo the basting down to the bottom of, or the top of the bottom of the fell, I should say, the top of the free portion of the pleat, and cast it away. And the reason why I do that, I don't cut it off because I try to recycle this stuff. The reason why I do that is if that stays in line, it kind of tricks my eye into whether my line is straight or not. Because one of the problems, one of the complications that come from my method here is you're not always precisely right in getting this half width from center to edge. You can think you're doing it right, and the end of it, you're sewing it together, you're going, oh, geez, that's off. And by off, we're talking an 1/8 or a 16th of an inch. It's not a tremendous amount. But the thing is, what that comes down to is that ideally, that black line, and in this case, it's a black line centered on the pleat. Ideally, that's going to be centered on the pleat, right? Well, in some of these pleats, it's not quite center because that didn't come out exactly right. And I'm a perfectionist, but I'm still not so much of a perfectionist that I would pick it apart, press it flat, and do it again if it's within acceptable standards, and they all have been. So my procedure, again, is that if the line, what saves us is even if the line is a little bit out of center, as long as the intervening color between the two is equidistant as we're sewing up the pleats, if you can see what I mean. If we can, it doesn't matter as long as it doesn't offend the eye. So if one line is a little bit closer, I'm going to add a little bit of blue, in this case, to the other side, so that we have equidistant layout, because our eye is attracted to shape, shine, silhouette, shadow, spacing, all those things they used to teach us about how not to be seen, right? So if it's evenly spaced, the eye will forgive. So my next stage, having pulled that back, using my my little gauge here, run it down with chalk. That's a bit frustrating there. Now I'm going to bring it in. And I check it a couple of times, right? This is why I'm using the gauge, because this allows you to work when distracted or fatigued or distressed or anything like that, because you've already done the thinking, and this is your literally your memory stick. So there we are, pinned, third pin at the bottom of the fell. And again, this is a great system for left-handers, which is why I invented it. Righties, I'm not casting you aside in contempt. I'm just inviting you to find your own methods, and please share them with us, right? So there we go. So there's the last pleat on the right hip. I'm going to sew that, measure it one more time. And the other trick that I have is when I'm measuring in an attempt to avoid confirmation bias, I make the measurement first, and then I look at the sheet, right? Okay, so there we go. There's a little more information to the puzzle, and again, I apologize for the somewhat haphazard nature in which these things are produced, because my primary thing here is that I'm a working tailor, I'm a working kilt maker, and the instructional bits that I post are a happy accident as an aside, where and you know, also depending on whether my videographer is available, and kindly is today. So there you go. If you keep listening to all of this stuff, you'll be able to do it. You'll be able to piece it together yourself. I do, once my incredible backlog, which is getting smaller. There's some material in my inbox which isn't there at present, but when I get my backlog under control, I have a piece of cloth set aside, and I'm gonna do a step-by-step construction of the kilt in real time from beginning to end. I can't say when we're going to produce that and get it up, but it's in the inbox, shall we say. So thank you very much. Be kind to each other. Carry on.